and welcome to Four Corners. I'm Sarah Ferguson. Which bank cheats some of its most vulnerable customers in their hour of need? Which bank? The Commonwealth Bank. Imagine you've paid life insurance premiums for years on the promise that should you be diagnosed with a serious or terminal illness, you and your family will be taken care of. Then, at your weakest moment, your claim is denied. Tonight, the former Chief Medical Officer at CommInsure, the bank's insurance arm, blows the whistle on a culture where doctors are pressured to change medical reports. Patients' files are deleted and claims delayed in a deliberate strategy to avoid expensive payouts. In the 2014 financial planning scandal, the Commonwealth Bank was accused of defrauding its customers and covering it up. After that scandal, CBA's bosses pledged to make it the ethical bank. Adele Ferguson's investigation for Four Corners and Fairfax reveals a clear failure to live up to that pledge.
We're on our way to outback New South Wales to meet a man who's lucky to be alive. James Kessel has been paying his life insurance premiums for more than 20 years, but thought he'd never need it.
I thought it was a waste of time. You know, I'm never going to need this. I'm not going to get sick. I don't get sick. I'm not going to have a heart attack. Nothing, yeah, what happens. Sweet! It lives again. Whoa.
September 19, 2014 was meant to be a new start for James Kessel as he set out to begin a new job on a building site as a diesel mechanic.
Great trip. 3 blown tyres on the way over. A lot of fun, a lot of swearing. So I get out and open the gate and I thought, oh, I've pulled a muscle or something. I thought, The heat that came over me, it was instant. I sort of thought I knew what was happening, but I was in denial. I thought I was, okay, bulletproof. So I thought, right, James, get in the car and get down to the workshop.
How you doing? Not far.
One of the men at the job site realised that something was wrong.
He said, you're having a heart attack. I said, oh yeah, maybe. Threw me in the ute, got me into town. He rang the hospital on the way into town. And they put me in the wheelchair, got me in there and got me on the table, and they started squirting some stuff into my arm. And I said, well, what's that? They said, that's the anti-clogging agent, like a bit like Drano. I'm looking at the nurses and I'm thinking, I'm finished. I'm dying here.
Okay, he's going into arrest.
Moments later, his heart stopped pumping.
The last thing I heard him say was, he's gone. And I heard the thing go zzz, and then there was nothing.
Open your eyes, James.
If he was not given shock, or we call it defibrillate, he would be dead. By no means he could have survived.
The doctor came over and he said, James, you remember me? He said, I'm Dr. J. I grabbed him by the arm with both hands and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, this guy just saved my life.
So you died?
Yeah, my heart stopped, but if I wasn't at the hospital, I wouldn't be talking to you now.
James was 46. Since he was in his early 20s, he'd been paying life insurance premiums for a trauma policy which covered him if he had a heart attack.
I got this policy when I was, I think, in my early 20s. So I had I had big debts back then with business, so I thought if something happens to me, I don't want to leave this mess to someone else.
In the weeks after he was discharged from hospital, he lodged a trauma claim which entitled him to a lump sum payment. James Kessel had no way of knowing it at the time, but here at Commonsure's headquarters, his claim would set in train a series of events that exposed scandalous and unethical conduct within the bank.
I was never naive to the fact that big business is about profits. But I think I'm a little bit disappointed when it's profit at all costs.
This man is the former Chief Medical Officer of Commonsure, Dr. Coe. He's decided it's time to blow the whistle on an entrenched culture of dishonest and unethical treatment of sick and dying people, his bank's policyholders. He agreed to be interviewed on condition we don't show his face, for privacy reasons.
How can someone go to bed at night with a clear conscience, knowing that somewhere in Australia, there's someone that's dying? In their darkest hour, you have an organization that throws up difficulties, hide behind technicalities, bully their way with their medical and legal experts against a helpless and defenseless claimant. How can that be right?
Mr. Narev, does Commonsure put profit before people?
Commonsure is a business that, hopefully like all the businesses at the Commonwealth Bank, thinks about the long term. And the long-term recipe here is that satisfied customers are good for shareholders as well.
Ian Narev, the CEO of CommBank, has proclaimed ethics a core value.
Being ethical is not the same as being perfect. We need to realise we're going to make mistakes, do our best to minimise them, but realise we will make them. And one test of how ethical we are is how we respond to those mistakes when we make them. And that's something which we will focus a great deal on.
Dr. Coe joined Commonsure as its Chief Medical Officer with great fanfare in November 2013. An eminent medical practitioner with a PhD and 20 years of clinical experience, his appointment was written up in numerous industry magazines.
My role was Chief Medical Officer. I lead a team of medical specialists, and I also assess risks for the company.
In November 2014, Dr. Coe was asked to review James Kessel's trauma claim, which entitled him to a payout of $1.1 million. Dr. Coe was startled to discover that part of Kessel's file had gone missing.
It was the first instance where we had documented proof where a file was there one day and the next day it was gone. Prior to that case, there were always suggestions and talk in the background that medical records were not properly kept. Files might have gone missing. Potentially, it could be open to adulteration without the original author knowing about it.
And that's what prompted you to go to who?
Well, before I went to my manager, I did a very quick search of the record database to find out if there were similar files that had gone missing. And I uncovered a few files that had blank documents. So that got me really concerned. But that is also in the context of claims assessors coming to the medical team asking us to either delete opinions that we have given or to change an opinion that we have actually given because it ran counter to a claim strategy.
That's pretty incredible, what you're saying.
Yes. So
you're saying that claims managers or assessors were coming to the doctors and asking them to go in and change opinions?
Yes, they were quite blatant about it. Can you please change it or delete it so that we can go to someone else to provide another opinion that's more favourable?
He's clearly a man of integrity. He is as brave as they come.
So in prior incidents...
Lawyer Michael Bates is representing Dr. Coe, who was sacked by the bank after raising allegations internally.
There are allegations simply of unethical behaviour. People within the organisation asking these doctors to delete their medical records, change their medical records, cherry picking which doctor they go to get a report, and if they're not happy with that, they will look outside and obtain a report from somewhere else where hopefully they will get the answer that they are seeking.
These are bombshell allegations.
They are extraordinary allegations. They are certainly the biggest thing I've heard as a litigation lawyer working in the insurance world.
We have evidence of a culture in CommonSure where doctors are bullied and pressured to change or delete medical records and opinions to avoid paying claims. Are you aware this happens?
Well, let me say at the outset that I'm aware and we've discussed individual cases where the outcomes that the customers have received for policies that they took out have not been good enough.
But what about the allegation that doctors are being bullied by claims managers to change their opinions and files being deleted?
The culture that we're building throughout the Commonwealth Bank and CommonSure is no exception, is one with the customer at the centre of what we do.
Are you aware of those allegations?
Those sorts of claims would be completely inconsistent with the culture that we are building at the Commonwealth Bank and inconsistent with the way that we run the bank.
Missing files, in Dr. Koh's opinion, were a huge risk.
I think it's just part and parcel of any kind of major institution to have robust records, because that is a documentation of history, a documentation of what transpired.
These allegations are that either the software program at CommonSure is not robust, it's not secure, or indeed somebody is destroying documents.
When you have someone potentially going in to change it without our knowledge, that throws it in a whole different category, and I would venture to say even criminal.
Dr. Koh reported the missing file to IT and asked them to investigate.
In fact, he spoke with somebody in the bank's IT department who confirmed that if you had enough IT savvy, you could manipulate the information in the system.
I put in IT requests, and I was hoping for it to be approved. I thought it was quite straightforward, but it got declined. So I assumed initially that was a human error that was declined unknowingly, so I placed another request. That was declined. And I think I must have placed about 3 different requests for it to be declined, that I went up to my manager, who was in a different office, to speak to him personally and say, why are you cancelling my request to find out?
An embattled bank chief finally emerges, pledging to stop the rot.
To all the customers who received poor advice, I apologise unreservedly.
Dr. Koh's disquiet came amidst an ongoing scandal in Commonwealth Bank's financial planning division, which included forgery, fraud, missing files and a management cover-up. A Senate inquiry was calling for a royal commission. Dr. Koh feared unscrupulous behaviour was also happening in CommonSure. After reviewing James Kessel's claim, Dr. Koh was in no doubt that Kessel had suffered a severe heart attack. Despite this, a week before Christmas, Kessel was told his claim had been rejected.
I'm thinking, like, you mongrels, you do this for how many years? Like, I would have been better off saving the money and putting it into something else, and would still have the money. It's supposed to make difference. That's why it's called trauma policy. It's supposed to relieve the trauma. Creates more.
James Kessel's claim had been knocked back based on the amount of a substance called Troponin in his bloodstream. This is a measure used by CommonSure to determine the severity of a heart attack.
So it's quite possible you can put a stent in something like that.
Four Corners has sought the opinion of one of Australia's most respected cardiologists to discuss the use of troponin as an indicator of heart attack severity. What is troponin exactly?
Troponin is a protein that is inside all heart cells, and when heart cells are damaged or under stress, it's released into the blood and can be measured through a blood test.
Is troponin a good indicator of the severity of a heart attack?
You can't consider troponin in isolation. I think that a cardiac arrest, which means that someone's heart stops, isn't functioning properly, they're collapsed and they need resuscitation, by any reasonable criteria, that's a serious occurrence. Hasn't he had angiograms before?
Professor Andrew McIsaac believes the emphasis placed on the troponin test in the CommonSure policy is questionable.
It's a bit odd, isn't it? In the last 10 years, there's been big advances in the understanding of the role of troponin in diagnosing heart attacks. If we're going to use 2 micrograms per litre as our threshold for diagnosing a heart attack, that's certainly out of date and not the standard that we'd apply now.
I'm aware of the issue around the troponin levels, and it's a very good question, a very fair question. What I will say is that the policy needs to be updated and is being updated, and that work has been undergoing now for a number of months, and we're going to make sure we accelerate it now to update the definition.
In June 2014, Dr. Coe conducted a random audit of 40 recent heart attack claims. Shockingly, he found that potentially more than 50% of legitimate claims could be knocked back. He recommended bringing the definition into line with clinical advances.
I'm not sure how you got that document, but yes, I can confirm that I did a very limited sampling of 40 cases because that was the resource I had. And I did find that claimants could potentially be disadvantaged by an out-of-date definition.
What was the outcome?
The consensus was if we were to change the definition, it would mean that legitimate heart attack claims will be paid out and there'll be more claims that are admitted, which has a pricing impact. So for purely profit purpose, purely for the bottom line, they didn't want to change the definition.
They sent me a letter, which is, I've got it in a pile there. It's just simply states that your troponin levels were not at the right level, so you don't get it. See ya. Goodbye. Have another heart attack. Better luck next time. See, if I would have died, which well, completely, and buried, it makes me wonder, would they have found a way to get out of that as well, you know? Like, no, he's not dead enough. Yeah, like, gee.
James Kessel's rejection letter said he was only entitled to $25,000. It said his heart attack wasn't severe enough.
Would you be surprised to learn that the Chief Medical Officer at CommonSure had concerns about your case?
I know nothing about that, but that's, what did he say?
Can I show you some documents?
For sure.
Okay, so this is a committee meeting, so just have a read.
So he's the guy that says yay and nay to policies.
This is him, plus several of his colleagues.
The insured had a very significant heart attack, very significant.
James Kessel reads the internal assessment of his case from CommonSure, which admits that denying his claim based on an unobtainable threshold would not be acting in utmost good faith.
We believe that declining this claim based on a now unobtainable threshold, so you'll never reach the figures needed. Like, what? Fair income. And someone above all these guys says, nah, stuff him, let him be miserable. We'll keep the money. Have you spoken to these guys?
Yes.
Mate.
Well, the first thing I want to say here is that whenever I hear a case like that, as the CEO of the Commonwealth Bank, and a customer in his time of need who hasn't received the assistance he needs, It saddens me, and the first thing I want to say to the customer, and I will write to the customer and say this, is to apologise and to offer to meet personally so I can hear about those circumstances.
ComInsure's response in what we've seen in these claims has been outrageous, and they need to be held account for it.
John Beryl is one of the country's leading life insurance lawyers. He's been watching the industry for years.
It's defer, deny, and sit back and wait and see if someone takes them on.
You can make a profit the legitimate way, and you can make a profit by some underhanded way. I want no part of the latter.
Early last year, Dr. Coe elevated his concerns to the board of ComInsure.
When they failed to progress my concerns any further, I went to the board of directors of ComInsure.
The bank assured him his concerns would be investigated.
They felt that there was sufficient ground to at least get an external auditor to come in to find out what's happening. Unfortunately, I never knew the outcome of that external audit because every time I asked who the firm was that was investigating or what were the outcomes, I was never told.
These allegations went to the ComInsure board. Did anything happen to them?
If such an allegation is made to the ComInsure board must investigate it. The ComInsure board would not be expected to, and indeed could not, let me know of those findings, and I shouldn't make inquiry as to those findings.
ComInsure is a life insurance giant. It has more than 4 million policyholders. But most people don't know they're with ComInsure because they're sold insurance and they pay for it through their super.
Funds such as Care, Kinetic and Hester have subcontracted life insurance to ComInsure. Nicholas Bishop's policy is through Hester. He's just returned to hospital after developing a virus in his lungs. He lodged his life insurance claim in October 2013 after 2 doctors diagnosed him with a terminal lung condition.
They both came to the opinion that my condition was terminal once I developed that secondary illness and had less than 12 months to live. Yeah.
ComInsure rejected Bishop's claim on the grounds that if he had a lung transplant, his condition would no longer be terminal. The Nicholas Bishop case also passed across Dr. Coe's desk. Dr. Coe was unimpressed and wrote to his manager that undue influence was placed on our medical team to provide an opinion that they seek. He went on, there was no reasonable basis but for the manufactured medical opinion to question the expertise and views of 2 treating doctors.
The person has an organ failure. If we take the insured as he is at that point in time when he submitted the claim, he fulfills all the requirements of the terminal illness benefit. I don't think it's by any stretch of the imagination to say that that is not utmost good faith. I think that incident brings into sharp focus this culture of profit above all else.
An internal document reveals ComInsure only acted after Nicholas Bishop threatened to go to the media. It said the circumstances surrounding his medical condition and the fact that he won't present well in front of the camera will attract the attention of the general public.
It's just grotesque, that sort of wording in an email about a human being who is at that time dying.
The reason to do the right thing by customers is because we're here to do the right thing by customers. The reason to do the right thing by customers is because we care about them. If that happens, it is absolutely contrary to the ethics of the organisation and to the values that we are emphasising in the organisation.
How many people are out there that are suffering every day, who are probably going through similar situations to what myself and my family had to go through when I was so unwell. It just makes you sick.
ComInsure decided to settle Bishop's claim. He later underwent a lung transplant.
Without the threat of media attention, do you think they would have settled?
No, probably not in this instance. We would have issued proceedings against them.
If you are a customer who is in a situation where your claim has not been well handled, in these situations in particular, the outcome is very distressing for the customer, and that must be unacceptable for us.
What do you think is going wrong with the culture where we're having examples that are really quite disturbing?
That is not good enough when a customer is in her or his time of need. That is, I think, at the root cause of a couple of the problems that you have mentioned.
There's a few steps in this process.
It seems that often only the threat of media attention or legal action pushes CommInsure to settle claims. For that reason, Michael Bates has encouraged another client to tell his story to Four Corners.
If you provide them with 2 medical certificates confirming that you've got a terminal illness as defined under the policy, then the claim should be accepted.
37-year-old IT consultant Evan Paschalis was struck down by leukemia in November 2014.
I was feeling a bit ill and went to the doctors, and they told me to go to the emergency department, and they diagnosed me with acute myeloid leukemia. They said it was 97% of my blood system is cancerous, and I needed immediate treatment. It's kind of ironic, like 2 days before we were booking airline tickets to travel overseas, and 24 hours later, and told that you've got to plan for your funeral, so.
CommInsure life insurance is payable if a policyholder becomes terminally ill and is likely to die within 12 months, despite reasonable medical treatment. 2 doctors diagnosed Evan as terminally ill. A third doctor said his life expectancy is less than 12 months. Evan has a policy with CommInsure through his super fund Care. He lodged a claim. It was rejected.
I honestly believe they were delaying to make sure that I passed away before they paid me out. They figured, well, there might be a slight chance he survives, so why pay him?
Four Corners was with Evan Paschalis 3 days before Christmas. He's waiting on a call from lawyer Michael Bates, who's lodged a fresh claim.
Sorry. Hi, Michael. Not too bad, buddy. Yourself? Okay. Yep. They rejected the claim. Right. Okay. Thanks again. Appreciate it, Michael. No worries. Thank you. Bye. Yeah, it looks like they rejected it again. So, there we go. No surprise. Yeah, they rejected it.
How do you feel?
Disappointed, yet I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised at all.
It's just so frustrating. Why would you torment a dying person and their family? Why? What are they getting out of this? A few $100,000? Well, I would have put funds aside for my daughter's future, had something I can plan for her schools, place deposits, do what I need to do for my family once I'm gone. This is just outrageous. I don't know what we need to do. But I'll tell you one thing, before I leave this planet, I'll fight with every NGO I can muster. I will. But I'll tell you one thing, before I leave this planet...
We showed this part of our interview with Evan Paschalis to Ian Narev.
I will.
What do you say to Mr. Paschalis?
Well, first of all, that is an extremely distressing video to see in relation to any customer of the Commonwealth Bank. So the first thing I will say to him is how sorry I personally feel, and I will be conveying my apologies to him personally. and inviting him to have the opportunity to come to speak to me personally so I can make sure I understand at a human level exactly what he's gone through.
Despite Mr. Narev's claims, the way CommInsure treats its staff speaks volumes about its culture. Helen Polydoropoulos was a customer service rep at CommInsure until late 2011 when she got sick.
I used to get hot rushes up and down my legs, and I'd be sitting at my desk, and it'd feel almost like someone would pour a boiling kettle of water over your leg.
She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a condition that affects the central nervous system. It's painful, can be debilitating, and there's no cure. When she told her superiors, CommBank's Chief Medical Advisor, Dr. Colin Johnston, gave her a call. He advised her to claim against her CommInsure policy for total and permanent disability, or TPD.
He did get on the phone to me and also spoke to my partner and said, "You're one of us, so we'll treat you the best as we can. You need to access funds that you have in your TPD. Multiple sclerosis is something that TPD does cover for and your insurance covers for."
As a CommBank employee, Helen's insurance was naturally with CommInsure. Dr. Colin Johnston assured Helen the bank would look after her.
Basically, he said, "Look, being one of us," he goes, "you're not anyone external to the bank, you're one of our own. Rest assured that will be treated as, I guess better and a lot quicker than other cases."
On November 21, 2011, Helen was ill health retired from the bank. Dr. Colin Johnston signed the letter. She then lodged her total permanent disability claim.
Put in a claim, it got denied. I thought maybe I'd filled in the forms wrong because they're not, a little 2-page form or anything. They're quite full on.
Since Helen was ill health retired from CommBank 4 years ago, CommInsure has knocked back every claim.
Well, I feel like they've taken the piss out of me, I guess. I'm at my lowest, and now you're going to take the piss out of me as well and make me feel, waste my time and my doctor's time.
Her physical and emotional state has deteriorated.
There's times where I'm pretty much bedridden most of the time, which is quite sad. It's very unpredictable, actually. You don't know when something's going to come on and what part of your body it's going to affect.
The rejection of Helen's claim seems to defy logic. CommBank retired her from its call centre, but the life insurance arm continues to deny her claim on the basis she had capacity to do other jobs. Four Corners contacted Dr. Johnston, who said, "We act on the advice of specialists."
When you got the letter of rejection and you looked at the bottom of the signature, were you surprised at the name that you saw?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us who that was?
Yeah, Dr. Colin Johnston and the medical, being the chief medical advisor. You tell me that I'm not fit for work and you made me permanently ill health retired, but then I put in my claim and you tell me that it's denied on the basis that you're fit for work. So why get rid of me then? So it's like catch-22, I guess. It's just screwed either way, I guess. I don't know what they're trying to achieve. I guess they're trying to achieve me giving up, maybe.
Helen tried to ring Dr. Johnston several times.
Okay. I tried many a times. He never came to the phone again. Email, he'd never respond. It was always his secretary. And that paid me off and upset me quite a bit. Quite a bit. Because I just felt like they were just misleading me and just... They had every intention of not paying me to begin with.
For 4 years, Helen's claims have been denied, pushing her to the brink financially.
I've had to, sleep on people's couches, and I've slept in my car countless nights.
And where are you living now?
I have moved back to Mum's. And it's hard. Sometimes I don't want to be. But I can't live on my own either. It's impossible.
4 years she's been getting knocked back, and she's hired lawyers, and the bank is challenging her. Can you imagine the stress this woman is under?
I can't imagine the stress that she's under. I haven't been in that stress. I say the same thing again, which is, as you've outlined, that is an unacceptable outcome for a customer, and we'll put it right.
Helen's not the only employee to feel betrayed by the country's biggest and most profitable bank. A customer service representative, Matthew Atwater, was given an Ultimate Success Award and praised on the night by former CEO Ralph Norris in 2010.
I won Employee of the Year, Best of the Best, Ultimate Success Award.
A year later, he developed a major depressive disorder after being brutally bashed. Matthew told his boss. He was later medically retired from CommBank and the workforce in general.
Sorry, you can no longer work, not only for the bank, but for the general workforce. It was a massive blow. It was scary at just how much impact that one report had on my view of the future, my everything. My world stopped that day.
CommBank dismissed Matthew as being permanently unfit for work, but then the bank's insurance arm rejected his claim for total and permanent disability.
How can one department say, no, sorry, you're so disabled that you can no longer work for us and that you'll never ever be able to work in any industry? And then for an insurance assessor to look at that and say, well, no, not really. There's more things that you can do.
Four Corners interviewed Beyond Blue chairman Jeff Kennett about CommInsure's handling of mental health cases like Matthew Atwater's.
I find the bank's attitude so totally wrong. If you're saying to an individual, you're no good, or your illness can't be treated, you're doing great psychological damage to that individual. For the Commonwealth Bank in 2013 to be doing this sort of thing to one of their own employees is disgraceful. Why do they get away with it? Because they're big.
Jeff Kennett described the bank's attitude to mental illness as disgraceful. I just wanted to know what your response is.
We have got a long way to go on mental illness, and I've in fact spoken myself to Jeff Kennett about mental illness, about the work he's done in Beyond Blue, and I accept that we, like many big businesses, have got much more work to do to bring our understanding of mental illness up to the level it ought to be at.
A week after Matthew Atwater's interview with Four Corners, but 3 years after he first began his battle, CommInsure finally settled his claim. Life insurance is a highly troubled industry. It's dominated by commissions of up to 130% of the first year's premiums. According to the corporate watchdog ASIC, a massive 37% of product advice is in breach of the law. The industry has been told to lift its game.
They're being dragged kicking and screaming at the moment to a code of practice. But they are getting there, and we've got to hold them to account.
I would not, with due respect, trust a life insurance organisation to develop a code that puts the public's interest first. We shouldn't waste time. Whatever they come up with will be there for self-interest, and it is better someone else develop the code for them.
So it just gets back to ethics. In November, Chairman David Turner talked about CBA wanting to be the ethical bank. Does that fit with what we're seeing here?
Our chairman said at the AGM we wanted to be the ethical bank. I have emphasised now for quite some time the importance of ethics and values, and that is a aspiration we stand by. We've got record levels of customer satisfaction. We've got record levels of people engagement relative to any time in the Commonwealth Bank's history. So we've got a culture that we're proud of.
Dr. Coe isn't convinced. He suggests CommBank doesn't understand ethics.
It's like trying to explain the colour blue to a blind person. How do you start when it's never crossed their consciousness? With the leaders in the organisation, I expect more from them. They talk the talk, but I've yet to see them walk the walk.
The clients of CommInsure don't buy it either. They continue to battle the bank.
They're making so much money, these mongrels, and the guy, oh mate, they're just ripping people off blind. You know, I don't get sick.
A powerful figure has taken an interest in James Kessel's case.
But I didn't get sick.
Senator John Williams drove a Senate inquiry into CommBank's financial planning scandal.
Cool. Thanks, mate.
All the best, mate.
I
think what this will lead to is another Senate inquiry, this time into the insurance industry. I think eventually we'll get a Royal Commission.
Evan Paschalis is still fighting as CommInsure demands even more tests.
I've had so many blood tests, I've lost count. I just think they might see a chance that I might survive, and they want to be 100% sure that I'm dead and buried before they pay me out.
Helen Polydoropoulos has lodged legal proceedings in the New South Wales Supreme Court. The bank says it will fight her claim.
They want me to give up, and that made me angry. That made me really peed off. You're taking people's funds from them. You're not, taking any less of a premium or anything like that. Those premiums keep getting higher and higher every year, but you're denying people.
They're still taking your premiums?
No, yeah. Premiums are still being taken. There's no question about that. They've never stopped at any point in time. Yeah.
Taking on the CommBank can be career-destroying, as Dr. Coe discovered. In August 2015, he was summoned to a meeting with CommInsure's CEO Helen Troop. Coe was sacked. The key reason given for his dismissal was that Coe had breached CommBank's policies by forwarding work files to his personal email account. An action he took because he was afraid files would go missing.
The reasons for his dismissal are farcical. He sought from his then manager the approval to send records to his personal email account as a way to keep that secure, and was given permission to do that.
These people do not understand that you can't buy integrity. And with those words, I walked away and thought to myself, I don't need your money. I'm not going to be silenced by your gag order. And you can choose to say whatever you want to my colleagues. I have no control over that. But damn if I'm going to be silenced. Okay.
Dr. Coe wrote to Ian Narev after he was sacked.
I was very disappointed with the whole process because here's the CEO of the company publicly proclaiming to the world that we want to do better, we want to be the ethical bank. But my experience of this whole process is that it's just a lot of words, and whatever's been proffered in the media has any substance.
In his letter, Dr. Coe outlined his concerns of unethical practices within CommInsure. He said he'd raised them under whistleblower protection guidelines, but they were dismissed. He expressed his disappointment that Narev's public proclamation of doing the right and ethical thing was just that, a public proclamation.
Dr. Coe wrote to you in August last year outlining some of his concerns. Did you respond to him?
I need to emphasise again what I said before, which is when specific complaints are raised anywhere from inside the insurance business, there are certain prescribed procedures in terms of how to deal with those sorts of concerns.
He became a whistleblower and was eventually sacked. What does that tell us about CommBank's attitude to speaking up about the truth?
As part of the emphasis that our board has put, I've put over a period of time on ethics and values, we are emphasising the importance of people speaking up when they see something wrong, but actually also when they've got good ideas, because that's a big part of being an innovative culture. It's essential in a big organisation that if somebody sees something they don't think is right, they have a safe place to raise it.
On August 11, 2015, Dr. Coe was escorted off the Commonshaw premises.
I think while I'm not naive to how business works, I'm terribly disappointed by how senior executives in CommBank have behaved. In my view, as long they project the right brand image, say the right words, bombard the media with their side of the story, everything else can go on business as usual.
Since we approached the bank last week, Commonshaw has offered settlements to Evan Paschalis and Helen Polydoropoulos. James Kessel is still waiting. See you at the same time next week. Good night.